I couldn't make up my mind, so
I want to call to order the meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. This is our regular meeting for June 12th. Good to see each and every one of you here this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to lead in a word of prayer and our Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone will please stand. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the day you've given us. We're thankful for this beautiful spring day and what we have here in Rutherford County. Father, we ask that you be with us this evening as we go about working on the things that are important to this community, to this county, to its citizens. We ask that you guide us, that you direct us, and give us the direction that we should go. Father, we're so thankful for the many things we have, but may we always remember what we do have comes from you. Be with us and guide us. We offer this prayer in your Son's holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands. Thank you, and it is good to see each and every one of you here this evening. We'll begin with our roll call and determination of a quorum.
Jim Averwater. Here. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Mike Cush.
Present.
Lee Bogle. Here. Charlotte P. Here. Trey Gooch. Here. David Jones. Chip Pinion. Here. Marvin Whitworth. Jim Thompson.
Here.
Pettis Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We begin with the reading of our minutes, or the approval of our minutes, and I'll call on our Vice Chairman, Lee Bogle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes of the March 27th, 2023 meeting, and they are found to be accurate and complete. Therefore, I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Chip Pinion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes have been approved. Mr. Director, is there any items withdrawn or deferred?
No, sir, there's not.
All right, we're getting directly right into our new business, beginning with rezoning, zoning ordinance amendments request. Just a reminder that all zoning and rezoning ordinances amendments request will be considered at the August 17th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting unless deferred or withdrawn by the Planning Commission or the applicants. Item 6.1. Willie Eugene Davenport, REZ 23009. Location is 740 Flat Rock Road. Commissioner's District is District 4, Robert P. Jr. Size of the site is approximately 10 acres, approximately 5 acres to be rezoned. Tax map 89, parcels 8002 and 8012. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is light industrial. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and good evening, everybody. This application is the result of a zoning enforcement action. There is an existing salvage yard located at 720 Flat Rock Road, which is really just up the road from these properties we're talking about today. A Type 1 conditional use permit was issued for that property in 2000, which allowed the current use. So the current use is a legally established use. The property was zoned light industrial when the current zoning ordinance and map took effect back in 2013. It appears, however, that the business has expanded its footprint onto adjacent property for reasons unknown to staff at this point. The property owners were unaware of the location of their property lines and have just realized that the Flat Rock Auto Parts and Salvage has been occupying the back half of their property for the last several years. Therefore, the property owner is requesting to zone a portion of their property, as Chairman Reed said, about 5 acres or so, to light industrial from the current zoning of residential medium density. And this is the same zoning as the existing auto salvage business. Now, salvage businesses, auto salvage, are classified as scrap operations according to the county zoning ordinance, which are only allowed by right in the heavy industrial district and special exception in the light industrial district. We weren't comfortable recommending heavy industrial just due to the range of uses that is allowed under heavy industrial. So we did instruct them to request light industrial for what they're doing. They are aware that should this application be approved for rezoning, that they would also have to apply for a special exception to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The existing business as it exists is non-conforming because the zoning doesn't allow it, by right at least. And as long as it stayed on the same property, there wasn't really an issue there. However, as we discussed, it has expanded past those boundaries, so they can't claim a grandfathering situation for this. So again, just to reiterate, rezoning of the property would not approve the current use. There's no redevelopment really anticipated with this particular rezoning request. It's being used for scrap vehicle storage. It will continue to be used for that. There's no other plans for the property. Of course, we would want to make sure that all landscaping, buffering, and requirements are taken care of, so we have instructed the applicant that should this be approved, they would have to do a site plan showing that those conditions are met. We also have informed the applicant that a legal description would need to be prepared showing the extent of the area to be rezoned, since they're not rezoning the entire property. And again, a BZA application for special exception would be required should this be approved. We would also like to caution the tenants on the property about any further expansion on the property that isn't for the current use, that's not zoned for the current use. Any further expansion would have to be approved through rezoning and possibly special exception, and again, a site plan as we had discussed. The property owners are here, and at this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioners, any questions? Mr. P.?
Mr. Tomasi, has there been any phone calls or opposition to this?
I haven't received any phone calls personally that I can recall. Now, that being said, I was out of the office last week, so I did ask our staff if they had received any while I was gone, and they indicated that nobody had called, but it had been pretty quiet.
Anyone else?
I'm a little confused by the property lines here. It looks like it goes over the existing usage with the salvage yard extends past on the 740 like it's 2, and then on to the next property beyond that. It's like this guy's has encroached upon several landowners.
That other property is not under the ownership of the applicants. Now, when we met with the current applicants and the person who operates the business, we told them, unless this is part of that request, which it's not, that they'll have to get those cars off, because that's not the property that he has leased, and it's not part of the applicant's property. So it looks like, based on this, now this isn't survey accurate, of course, but it's probably not that far off. But yeah, he knows he needs to take steps to remove those vehicles from that other person's property.
So, but it looks like it's across 3 properties. I mean, and this guy has expanded this salvage yard, and nobody has noticed that he just keeps growing it onto other people's properties. I mean, if these property lines are correct, this guy's all over everywhere. He's like a virus.
Well, and of course, when you look at this, I mean, this business is off the road quite a way. And if there's nobody complaining about it, it's not easily, you can't see it. I mean, I'm not surprised that it's gotten to this point. It's taken us for a while for us to notice these things.
Do you mind if I speak up?
Please.
We received a complaint. There's 3 salvage yards in Rutherford County. We received a complaint about one of them, not this one, it was a different one. And it was for the same reason, that they had cars spilling over onto adjacent property. And it was that property owner that contacted us. So when we contacted the salvage yard in question, he made the comment that there's 2 other salvage yards in Rutherford County that are doing the exact same thing. So that's how this came up. When we contacted both the salvage owner and the property owner, they had an agreement to, the property owner of these 2 pie-shaped pieces of property had an agreement, a lease agreement with the salvage yard owner, so he knew that they were on his property and he was charging them for it. What they didn't realize is that they were on the 3rd, they had spilled over onto the 3rd piece of property. He is now aware of that and is supposed to be cleaning that up.
Commissioners? If you have no more questions or comments, we'll now let the applicant come forward. Let us have your name, if you could. No, just come right here to the microphone and use the microphone to speak there. Now.
Willie, Eugene, Davenport.
Mr. Davenport, how long has this salvage yard been here?
What was it, about 2000, I think? Or, yeah, maybe even longer than that. Not really for 100. Yeah. Quite a bit, a few years.
Mr. Davenport, if you'd like to, you might just want to tell the commissioners your plans and what you have in mind.
What I was planning on doing is just, since he's spilled over on me, I was just going to let him just rent that little section out and just for light industrial and just make sure he don't go over the boundaries of anybody else anymore. It's been like that for, I know, 20 years. I know, because I've been there 16 years, and we just started, I think, a year and a half. We just now been collecting rent, but I've been there 16 years myself.
Any questions? More questions for Mr. Davenport? Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll, if there are no further questions from the commissioners, we'll open it up for public comment. And what this is, if there's anyone here that would like to come forward and express their concerns or statements they'd like to make, just to let you know that you have a 3-minute comment period, and we ask that you stay within that. We'd like to have your name, your address, and we'd like for you to give it to our secretary so we have a record of that. So at this time, we'll open the comment period. Come forward.
My name is Tony Lynch. I live at 506 Flat Rock Road. I'm one of your new neighbors. The only question that I have would be when you were talking about the rezoning to light industrial. You did mention something about a heavy industrial and that it wasn't really in the plan, but is that something that can come on later on down the road?
I can answer that after the public hearing. Yeah, okay. I'll answer it after.
Right. We don't have any opposed to what Mr. Davenport's doing. We wanted to show up and kind of see what was going on. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else wish to comment? State your name, address.
My name's Eugene Davenport, and I own that property. I sold it in 2004. Mr. Jakes had that property for years and years as a junkyard, and I got it from him, and I run it as a junkyard. In 2004, I sold it. The land that we're talking about now, my son, I give it to him. And we didn't know this guy was moving it on it, to, like he said, he was on some of mine, you know, when I owned it. But when Willie got it, his wife and them was a little smarter than me. They made him pay. I didn't, you know, but now, I do know that the guy on the other side of Willie's property, they are moving it. They are cleaning that property up. And, but, you know, like I say, it's been there a while. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to make a comment at this time? If not, I'll close the comment period. Commissioners?
Can I respond? Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll answer the gentleman's question. As far as he had some questions about the light industrial versus heavy industrial. To answer your question, if they ever wanted heavy industrial in the future, they'd have to come back through this process to do what they're doing right here. I don't foresee them ever needing to do that, nor do I see a time that I can think that there would be a need for heavy industrial out here. They can always ask, but they would have to go through this. You'd get the notice and the signs and everything like you would for this meeting, so.
Doug, is the whole piece of property being rezoned?
No, they're only looking to do a portion of it.
hatch?
Yes, the portion where the storage is, that's all they're looking to do.
Any other concerns you have if all the regulations are met and they get everything cleaned up and, you know, go through the process, make sure the buffer is correct? Do you have any other concerns?
They'll have to meet, you know, whatever state requirements are out there as far as, you know, groundwater, you know, fluids, collections and things like that. They'll have to do all that. Of course, that's outside of our purview, but, I mean, as has been stated, you know, this has been going on for quite some time. So it's really just a continuation of what's going on. From that standpoint, I don't have that many concerns about it, but they'll have to abide by whatever regulations outside of what we can enforce. They'll still have to do that.
But the zoning wouldn't have any impact on the state regulation?
Correct. They'll have to do that regardless.
Right.
Mr. Bogle?
Doug, I was going to ask you, the property to the north of the main property, the residential medium density, looks like it's being encroached on as well. Is that going to be cleaned up in all this?
We'll make sure that they know. When we looked at this, when we met with the applicants originally, we were concentrating more on that southern end. But you're right, looking at that aerial photo, it looks like there's a little bit of encroachment to the northeast there. So we'll make sure that they're aware of that. They need to clean that up too.
And then also any buffers that are required under this new lease agreement, I guess, is being RL close to that, and RM, whatever buffers are required to maintain there. Make sure they understand those.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Doug, 10 years ago, this was rezoned into light industrial, correct? The original?
Yes, where the business is, the primary business is, yes.
And it was rezoned with the knowledge that it's going to be a junkyard, salvage yard?
Yes, we picked that zoning because we didn't want to see heavy industrial. The light industrial did allow it by special exception, so in that sense it became non-conforming. But yeah, we deliberately picked light industrial for that property.
So that original piece of property 10 years ago was rezoned for a salvage yard, a junkyard?
Correct, yeah, the use was already there, so we just put the zoning that most closely matched it.
I'm just wondering what the discussion was. Is it related to number of cars or any of those kinds of things, expansions or any of that kind of stuff?
There really weren't any discussion, nor are there any regulations in the zoning that would really dictate how many cars and everything it have. I mean, quite frankly, enforcement of that would be a nightmare. I don't know how we would do it. But that gets back to whatever state and federal guidelines are out there as far as storage and fluid collection and those kind of things.
I'm just thinking back 10 years ago, those of us that were on the Planning Commission at that time probably had some apprehension about approving a junkyard and seeing this thing expand into areas that it's not supposed to be expanded into causes this commissioner a lot of heartburn. I'm inclined to disallow it and make him clean the place up. I've got some serious concerns about it growing and growing and growing and becoming something that we don't want as a county. I've got those concerns.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but are the Davenports are the owners of this property, not necessarily the owners of the junkyard, correct?
Correct.
So we are discussing the rezoning of property that they already have leased to the junkyard. So we're not making a judgment on the junkyard. We're making a judgment on the property that has been leased to the junkyard.
The unzoned portion, right, or the,
just,
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
The Davenports really don't have, they're just leasing the land to the junkyard.
Correct.
So That's what we're discussing.
That is correct.
Not
Yeah,
the properties of the junkyard.
Yeah, I mean, following along with what Commissioner Phillips was saying, if this were recommended for denial and ended up being denied, they would just have to move all those cars off the property and back onto the main site that is zoned for it. That's what would have to happen. Yeah.
My point was that it's expanding above and beyond what we approved a number of years ago. And if I would have known, we would have known that would become larger and larger and larger and larger. We would have probably put some restrictions on it or had some concerns about it 10 years ago. I'm concerned that they're growing and growing without the proper approval and those kind of things. I don't have anything at all against the Davenports, but I do have some concerns about expanded salvage yards without proper approval. Should have come to us and give us the opportunity to say no or yes. I'm much more inclined to say yes if they come to us and ask for approval than they come to us and ask for forgiveness, which is exactly what they're doing in my mind. I've got some concerns about it.
You know, being a county resident out here and seeing these types of things throughout the county, I don't think this is unique at all. We got a piece of property that don't even know where the property pins are at. And it's nothing unusual for folks that grow up in the county. I've seen property pins that once they resurvey it, it's not even close to where you thought you were at. So 5 acres is not much. Being kind of one of the guys that looks for salvage yards to keep things rolling, we don't have many here. And I think by the sheer fact that the piece of property here doesn't have a single person that has showed up to speak against it, kind of indicates that the folks have not made a bad-looking site from the road. It's just one of those things they're trying to clean up, and yeah, they're going to get to expand it if this is approved, but 5 acres is not much. Not for when we think in terms of how fast the county's grown, how much we've grown, how much the need is for a salvage yard.
Looking at the aerial view, what is currently zoned light industrial, is there terrain challenges there, or are they, it looks like that southern part of that property is vegetation, and I didn't know if there's certain challenges there or how much more room they do have on what they've...
Yeah, she'll turn on the topography here. We'll take a look at it.
And what all actually is light industrial. I know the shading you had up there on the screen, I was trying to determine if that entire magenta versus purple, if that's all light industrial or if that's just one piece of it.
Well, I'm not sure what
is everything under that color palette that you're showing there, is that all light industrial, or is...
Yeah, I think that that's the property that's currently zoned light industrial right there that you're looking at. Yeah, that other magenta, that was a zoning comment that was on there. I was kind of throwing things, but yeah, I'm sorry. That is all zoned light industrial currently.
That's okay. That western side on our packet was cut off, and I didn't know exactly how much property they had there. Just trying to get a scope.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest, Mr. Chair, if I may speak, I think my biggest concern goes a little bit with what Jeff was saying. And our codes director has mentioned that there are a couple of, apparently it's unanimous that our junkyards in this county are expanding without getting proper zoning. I don't want to really set a precedence here that just says, oh, okay, you can go ahead and do it, and then we just approve them. That's that easier for forgiveness than permission thing. And I feel like, you know, I suppose it's possible I can give the Davenports the benefit of the doubt that They didn't know these people were on their property, but looking at this picture, if somebody was anywhere close to my property with that, I'd know about it. I don't know. I'm just a little reserved about approving this.
Just one quick follow-up. You mentioned the state regulations and the state controls certain things. When we approve any type of auto repair shop or any of those kind of things, we ask a lot of questions about groundwater contamination as it relates to oil, antifreeze, those kinds of things. You've got a bunch of cars there, and we're not asking those questions. Is the state supposed to inspect and regulate what goes onto the ground, into the ground, that kind of thing?
I would say they are. Exactly how that works and the process they use, I don't know, nor can I speak to. But anything, you know, as was said earlier, anything that we do here, regardless of what approvals we may give, or we can't put the conditions on it, but even if we do give them an approval, we're not giving them some sort of a carte blanche to be able to just do whatever they want without adhering to whatever regulations are out there. So it's incumbent upon the business owner to know what the regulations are and to abide by those. So regardless of what we do here, even if we do approve it, you know, that doesn't change. But I can't speak to what those procedures are and how that works.
The property we were looking at tonight to rezone, though, that's owned by the Davenports, and they've been leasing that to the salvage yard.
That's right.
So they know it was on their property then. So we're just trying to either make it legal or make them move it, permitted or not.
Correct.
Okay. And with permitting that, if it's approved, then they need to adhere to all the buffers and different things to bring that up as well.
That's right.
Thank you.
Commissioner P?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. We have had no complaints from neighbors or the neighborhood. The Davenports are willingly leasing their property, and they are trying to make it up to codes at this point. I think after this point, I think we can make an effort to do better with salvage yards and their limitations, but I don't want to jeopardize or penalize the Davenports since at this point. So I'd like to make a motion to approve with all staff comments.
Have a motion to approve. Have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. Have a motion to approve and second. Further comment?
Doug, what's the application to the BZA? What's that going to be specifically for?
It'll be for a special exception for the use of a scrapyard in the light industrial district for the expansion, the expansion that they're looking to do on these properties. Yeah. Now, as Ms. Bell was talking a moment or two ago, there are a couple more out there that you will probably see. I know we've been in contact with one, and it wouldn't surprise me if they made an application for the next deadline or maybe the deadline after. They've already been up to our office and talking. This may not, hopefully this will be the last time we see this, but there may be a couple more streaming in, just so you understand. Similar situation.
Now, one other question. With the state being involved in these salvage locations, do they have anything to do with the maximum size allowed or maximum acreage or anything, or is that strictly up to what we zone?
Yeah, that would be, again, from a zoning standpoint, they'd be okay from our end. Now, if they have to do something at the state, they would have to adhere to whatever they're going to tell them at that point. Okay. So, and I don't know what those regulations
I was just curious if there was a permit already in place that said you're allotted 5 acres and that was it.
Sure.
And we may be
I'm not aware
contradicting
of anything.
them. Okay.
Further comments? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Jim Averwater? No. Jeff Phillips?
No.
Mike Cush? Yes. Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P? Yes. Craig Gooch?
Yes.
Chip Pinion? Yes. Jim Thompson?
Yes.
Pettis Reed?
No.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We'll move now to item 2. Deals with zoning ordinance amendments, ORD 23002, transfer station regulations, addition to section 1103. Planning and engineering staff are the applicants. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're happy to bring these regulations to you for public hearing tonight. We discussed these during the last meeting we had back in May, I believe the 22nd. There's been discussion over the last several months about the county building and operating a solid waste transfer station as part of an overall strategy for solid waste management when the current landfill can no longer accept waste. Currently, however, there aren't any regulations in our ordinance regarding transfer stations, so we began working with our solid waste director, Bishop Wagner, our engineering staff, building codes, fire and rescue, to craft some proposed regulations to section 1103, which are the use-specific standards. We do propose to classify this use as an extensive impact facility, which is only allowed by right in heavy industrial. However, it can also be approved by special exception in the light industrial and commercial general zones. The facility will have to meet all state and federal regulations, and there are also setback and area regulations requirements for an operational plan and other mitigation requirements. I did include a copy of the draft for your consideration, and we discussed this again at the last meeting. You'll see there's some definitions there, some statements regarding conformance to state and federal regulations, specific standards regarding the operational plan, area and setback requirements, general mitigation requirements, odor control, and also haul road and traffic. Then you'll see that there's some in there about storage as well and how we propose to classify it as we discussed here just a moment ago. I can go into as much or as little detail as you want with this. This will have to have another public hearing if this gets approved tonight before the Board of Commissioners, which will be in August. Again, we did work closely with several county departments, specifically, and probably most importantly, our solid waste director, just because, quite frankly, he knows more about this than I ever will. So we were really happy to have him helping out with this, and he's been pretty pleased with what we've come up with. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any comment?
Doug, is there a maximum size that these can be as far as land goes, acreage?
There's not a maximum that I'm aware of. Now, we did propose a minimum for these. The minimum would be 15 acres, have to be at least that. But as far as an actual maximum, it can't be any bigger than X amount of acres. I'm not aware of anything, but that's something that we could find out from Mr. Wagner.
Other questions, discussion?
Just, Doug, the proposed language of this, did we contact any other counties that may be new to this also, like Williamson County as an example, or Davidson County?
Well, actually, the regulations before you were actually the model, and a lot of the language you see here was from Williamson County's ordinance. You know, I'm one, I don't consider it plagiarism. I consider it, yeah, what's that? Research, exactly. So, yeah, why reinvent the wheel kind of a thing. So, but now, of course, we tailored it to our, there were things in there that we didn't think were applicable to our situation, so we left those out. The definitions you see there, actually, Bishop came up with those to help us out with some of the language that was in here. But yeah, these were borrowed heavily from Williamson County's regs.
Thank you. Mike, the other night we had a discussion, and the 20 acres was kind of thrown out for a similar type of operation. Is 15 acres enough?
Yeah, we asked Bishop that question, and I think that came up even at the last Planning Commission meeting, I want to say, and he had said that's fairly standard, 15 acres. He was comfortable with that as a minimum. So.
Now, if they're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question related to what Commissioner Phillips just asked. Do we have any knowledge of what Davidson County's regs are? And I guess where I'm going with this is, if their regulations are more stringent than ours, could it encourage someone to set one up, say in the Laverne area or right along the county line, and start importing trash into Rutherford County. And here again, we've got the wear and tear on our roads, basically no different than what we've got now, except we're just hauling it right back out. And
Well, to answer your question, have I looked at Davidson County's regulations? I have not. That being said, if these are approved, the only place that this is going to be allowed, the only zones, again, by right, is heavy industrial. There's not a whole lot of heavy industrial zone property in the county. There's just not. The landfill, the existing landfill area is probably the largest by far. You can have it by special exception in light industrial and commercial general. Again, there's just not much of that. There are some places that is zoned that way, but you'd have to meet these minimum requirements, plus at that point they would have to get a special exception before the Board of Zoning Appeals, so it's not a by right situation. If they couldn't find any of that, then they'd have to go ask for rezoning of property. So even if they are more restrictive, trying to locate one here, it's going to be a challenge, just because of the fact that if they can't find property already zoned that way, they're going to have to look for property to zone that way, and then we're going to get a crack at looking at it. Okay, does that really meet what we think this area should grow as? Those kind of things. So, I mean, we're not in just a huge hurry for this. I mean, the county commission does not meet in July. If we needed to, we could defer this, where we could look at that a little bit more. If you'd be more comfortable with that, we'd be happy to do that. But yeah, that's how I would.
County Commission is scheduled to meet in July. It's on the calendar. Doesn't mean it won't be withdrawn, but it's on the calendar.
Okay. That's news to me, sorry.
Mike, I'd like to know your thoughts on what the work you've done, just real quick, you know, on what you see here and what you feel like.
This is good. This has been vetted by Bishop Wagner, and I'm ready to support this. Commissioner Overwater brings up a really good question, but I think Doug answered it well. There are not many sites suitable for a transfer station, and we have lots of eyes that could vote yay or nay to dissuade an outsider to come in and build a transfer station.
Other questions or comments? If not, we'll go into a public comment period. And same rules apply here. Anyone who has any comments, either for or against, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. You'll come forward and give us your name and address. Comment period is open at this time. Anyone may come forward at this time. I notice the crowds are coming forward at this time, but evidently we do not have anyone that's wanting to have anything to say at this time, so we will close the comment period. And commissioners, it's your opportunity.
Do we have any type of timeline on when we feel like we'll see the first one of these based on the current capacity of the landfill? And, you know, has there been discussion about that? Mike?
Chip, you've asked a question that has two answers. The viability of the Middle Point landfill life is in debate. We are ignoring the closing potential date of Middle Point landfill, whether it's 2 years or 5.5 years. We want to build a transfer station as soon as we possibly can. And Bishop has a plan where we can actually make money on that transfer station by bringing in trash. Still, ours would be for free as long as Middle Point is open, and we have that contract with Middle Point. But we could bring other trash in within the county that is currently coming from private haulers that are paying an exorbitant price at other places to haul, including Middle Point. So we could actually be making some money, but at some point in time we are going to have a transfer station, and we don't want it to be when they say, hey, by the way, the gate's closed and trash starts piling up in our constituents' driveway and no place to go. And it takes about 1.5 years to build one, so we need to do it right now.
Will all these be owned by the county? Will the transfer stations be owned by the county, or can they be owned by anybody that performs an application and wants to get into that business for whatever reason? I'm just.
Yeah, right now, the plan is it will be a county-owned transfer station.
If I can interject just real quick, I just want to make sure everybody is aware that these definitions and these regulations that we're proposing here are not simply for the county. Anybody could make an application for one. So now, I think what highlighted the need for these regulations was the fact that the county was looking to go in this direction, but this is not specific for just the county and the county only. So.
Well, I appreciate all those involved forward thinking on this, because this is a big thing. And I appreciate everybody's work on this. I'll go ahead and, do we need a motion to, I'll make that motion to approve this subject to all staff comments.
We have the motion. Do we have a second? Have a second. Commissioner Averwater, further discussion. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Averwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips?
Absolutely.
Mike Cush?
Yes.
Lee Bogle? Yes. Trey Gooch?
Yes.
Chip Pinion?
Yes.
Tim Thompson?
Yes.
Addis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries, and I think that's a good one for us. This is exactly what our name implies. We are a planning commission, and this is what this is all about, planning for the future and what we have to do here. Just a reminder, all rezoning zoning ordinances amendment request will be considered at the August 17th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting, unless deferred or withdrawn. And so these will be seen at that commissioner meeting on August 17th. Old business? No old business. Staff reports and other business. All right, everything's taken care of. With no other business, we are adjourned.
In fact, before you hit the gavel, I just want to make sure everybody's aware. Sorry, I thought you were going to say this, but our next Planning Commission meeting, which is normally on the fourth Monday, because of the County Commission meeting for the budget on that Monday, it'll be on the Tuesday, the 27th. That's at the bottom of your agenda. I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. So I apologize for getting in there before you hit the hammer, but I thought you were going to say that.
I do this at every public safety meeting. It happens all the time, doesn't it, Trey? But no, I was giving everybody the benefit that they're reading their agenda tonight, but that's okay. Anything else should come forward. If not, we are adjourned.